Hello, it's me again. Happy Sabbath. I'm going to take these off just because I'm getting reflection on them and I don't like that. Hope you're well. I have just come back from the States this morning. I was in the States for basically a week. Left Saturday morning last week and I got back Saturday morning today. It's been a pretty good trip, I think, overall. I'm not a traveler. I don't like traveling. I think I was saying that in a vlog just before I left because I was dreading the travel. Um, but there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. And I much prefer the life that I've curated here. To I've always been that kind of person. I remember just after school when everybody else was traveling and doing their bits and pieces, I worked and I enjoyed working and I enjoyed building the life that I was building. But yeah, anyway, I'm back from travel now. It's great to be back. I thought, hey, the most important thing that I will do when I come back is the Sabbath message for this week. Um, and of course, to welcome me back for being away, I was playing with Charlie on the couch. I was sort of laying down, he was sitting on me, and he's now very very active and very all over the place, just like me, of course, all over the place. But he kept trying to roll off, and I have to try and catch him. Hannah and I were laughing that he's got a bit of a death wish, because he'll be on the couch just chilling. Next minute he'll flip, and you'll be like, "Dude, you're gonna fall. You're gonna hurt yourself." But anyway, so I was laying on the couch, and I sort of, after playing with Charlie for a bit, Hannah went to put him to bed, and I sort of passed out because I'm exhausted. And I woke up at one point, and I thought I saw Charlie roll off me and fall towards the ground. And I freaked out and put my hand out, and it was the cat. The cat had fallen asleep on me as well. I moved, cat jumped off. I thought it was Charlie. Freaked out and tried to catch the cat, but all was okay. The cat was fine. I was fine. Charlie was asleep. But when I woke up, the reason I woke up was we had I suppose you could call it a freak storm out of nowhere. We had a lot of wind. My goodness, out of nowhere. Very little rain, but the rain was coming down like this, like sideways, right? Just absolutely out of nowhere. We got a little bit of rain, blessing, really, really good. A couple of trees went down in like a 5-minute period. And I said to Hannah, "Do you know what the best part about this is?" She goes, "What?" I said, "Well, I wasn't overly sure what the Sabbath message would be about today. And I'm going to read today. You'll see why in just a second, from Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. I said, there you go. Now, I have a story that we can talk about based on a storm. So in Mark chapter 4, verse 35, it says, "On the same day when evening had..." Sorry, forgive me. I'm very, very tired. I'm hopefully not going to stumble too much. "On the same day when evening had come, he said to them, 'Let us cross over to the other side.' Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?' Then he arose, he rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was great calm. But he said to them, 'Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?' And they feared exceedingly, and said to one another, 'Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him?'" So again, it just, hearing this story and hearing about, he rebuked the waves and the wind, and it just stopped in its tracks immediately, right? It reminded me a lot of, in fact, that was again why I was sort of, felt inspired to talk about this today, was the storm that we had just came out of nowhere and it was gone as quickly as it had come. It reminded me very much of this. As soon as Jesus said, "Hey, peace," everything stopped. It was all over. The power of Jesus' voice ended the storm like that, right? And it got me thinking as well to this trip to America that I've just been on. Again, I don't like travel. I like the comfort of my own home, but I also just don't like the not knowing, the uncertainty. So many things could go wrong. When you introduce something like traveling, so many things could go wrong. And, there's probably a lot of fear from my perspective around what could have happened. And again, just like I mentioned, over the last few Sabbaths, I've been really trying to to challenge myself, and I feel challenged by God as well, that I can trust him verbally. I trust God that all these, whatever, no matter what happens, God's in control. But actually having a practical application for that and putting myself into situations and scenarios and handling them in such a way that it is based on full trust for God and not in myself. It's a challenge for me personally. This is something that I'm learning. I had the opportunity to go on this trip, and there were parts of it where I just had to hand over to God and say, you know what? This is you. I trust, I have faith that whatever you will for my life, that's what's going to happen. And I don't want it any other way. Realistically, if God's got a plan for your life, why would you want to argue that? Why would you want to fight that? Because then you're up against God's plan and you're going to lose. So I'm very, very grateful God was with me on this trip. I had a couple of connections with people that felt very God driven. Just chatting to Ubers and stuff as I was traveling different places. It felt like God had me where I needed to be in certain scenarios, which is apparently on the other side of the world. Which again, not a huge fan, but whatever God wills, that's where I want to be. So, but then, verse 41, they feared exceedingly and said to one another, "Who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him?" So they had been following Jesus and listening to Jesus speak, the disciples, for a little while now. And, even after they had seen what they'd seen and they'd heard what they'd heard from him, now they're in a situation where, it says in verse 37, great windstorm arose and the waves beat on the boat so that it was already filling. Now, if you're somebody who goes boating and you think about where the water should be when you're in a boat, it should be outside of the boat, right? If the water is outside the boat, you're pretty good. If the water is inside the boat, you've got a problem. So the fact here, the boat was filling, and where was Jesus? Sleeping, trusting. Right? There's so many situations in the Bible where, Jesus talks about praying to God, or sort of submitting to God and to God's will. The way I'm understanding this and reading this is, Jesus is living his entire human existence in full submission to and full trust in God's will. He knows why he is on the earth. He knows what God has planned for his life. Despite the fact that the boat is literally filling up with water, he knows that whatever God has planned will be. Right? He knows that he has come here to die for the sins of humanity. And there's a very particular way that needs to be done. And this is not it. So Jesus can sleep through it. To me, that's genuinely fascinating. Because again, you think about a boat. If the water's on the inside, you got a problem. But Jesus is able to sleep through it. And the second he sort of stands up and says, "Peace," it's over. And the disciples were, very much challenged by what they had seen once again. Which again, it's confronting. Even people who were with Jesus daily could still be like, "Wow, who is this guy?" So, anyway, shorter one today. Again, because I haven't slept slept very well, apart from that little short nap in 48 hours. But yeah, I pray that whatever storms are in your life, or whatever situations are in your life, remember that God is in control. There is no one else better to be in control of your life than God. Even you, especially you, if you're like me. It's much better that you hand over control to God and you hand over the trust in the direction of your life to God, rather than you try to guide it and you try to control it. Because if God's got a plan and God's got power and God's got a will, it will be a million times better than whatever you have planned for your life. So yeah, live under the submission of God. Live in peace, knowing that is true, right? That God has full and total control and full and total ownership of your life. And you, by handing all of that over to God, just like Jesus sleeping through a storm where the boat is filling up with water, you will have the ability to truly be at peace in all scenarios. Despite how dreadful things seem, and we are entering into a period of history where things do seem quite dark. And I think it's, you will, if you have not come to Jesus and you haven't put your trust in Jesus yet, when you do, and I pray that you do, you will see and you will notice a difference in your life in terms of just your general peace. You will know that no matter what happens to your life, no matter what happens to the world, no matter what Satan throws at you, you know and you have full faith in the fact that God is in control. What's that song? I was listening to it today. If our God is for us, who could ever stop us? It's such a simple if this then that thing, If God is with us, if God is on our side, if we're submitting and our lives belong to Jesus Christ, then what can beat God? What power is there that can beat God? There is none. So that's it. That's the most important part. Oversimplify it and strip it back, and that's it. If you're on God's side and you give your life to God, that's it. That's the most important part. Anyway, I hope, to me, I feel like I'm oversimplifying it now, but really it is that simple. If your life belongs to Jesus Christ, you got nothing to worry about. You may lose your life for Jesus, the Bible says that, but overall, that's a good thing. You may suffer in the name of Jesus, but that's a good thing. So, anyhow, hope that you're having a great day. Praying for everybody who listens to this. Again, Mark chapter 4, verse 35 through 41. If you haven't put your full faith, and you test yourself, right? You will know. You will bring it to God, and God will, make you aware. If you have not truly put your faith in God in a full and total surrender way, do it today. Do not hesitate for another second. Life is so much simpler and easier to understand, despite the pain of the world and the darkness of the world, if you truly give your life to Jesus Christ. I have learned that. I've been challenging myself over the last little while to really do that in a more true way. And I can tell you, there's a level of just completely releasing control to God, and it takes so much of the pressure and weight off. So, praying for you all. Hope you're well, and we will talk soon.